Hi, everyone. Carter Krishna here from the Florida Squeeze. We usually don't talk about sports on our site or our YouTube channel, right? We talk about history and around Florida, nature, uh, politics, governance issues in the state. But very, very sad day for me personally today, Boxing Day, December 26th, as Jim Larrañaga has stepped down as the head basketball coach at the University of Miami. I'm someone who doesn't watch American professional sports. I stopped watching the NFL 25 years ago, stopped watching the NBA and Major League Baseball probably close to 20 years ago. I think I still watched a little bit of the NBA up until like 2008, 2009. I work in soccer, as many of you know. I do work in soccer. But my rooting interests in that sport have been Manchester City, who, this sounds crazy maybe to a lot of you, but they've won 6 titles in 7 years. And the bandwagon hoppers, the front runners who've become fans, in addition to my ethical qualms about the ownership of the club, have kind of separated me from that. And all the clubs I've rooted for domestically in soccer, Fort Lauderdale Strikers, Miami FC, etc., they've been limited by the closed league system in the United States and no promotion and relegation. So you can't get to the top division. So long story short, my rooting interests in sports have effectively been the University of Miami men's basketball program. I went to the University of Florida, so I followed Gator football. Grew up a Miami fan, so followed Miami football. Eventually got sick of college football. Followed Gator basketball, but because I was living in South Florida and Miami was in the Big East at the time, really latched myself to that program in the late 90s when Leonard Hamilton was coaching the team. And then when I lived in Tallahassee in the early 2000s, got into ACC basketball, going to FSU games. And really kind of, ACC was the television league. That was the league you would watch a lot on TV. So when Miami joined the ACC in 2004, that became my team. They were my team, but so was Florida. And Florida won 2 national championships right after that. The SEC loved those national championships. But there was something about ACC basketball and something about basketball being in the ACC. Jim Larrañaga stepping down really hits me. It's a gut punch. But truthfully, the last few weeks have been so agonizing for the Miami basketball program. The worst I remember for the program since Perry Clark's last season, which was Miami's last season in the Big East. Miami had won the Big East title in 2000 under Leonard Hamilton. Miami had finished just a game behind UConn, who was the best team, one of the best teams, I think, in college basketball history, the 1999 UConn team. Miami was 15-3 in the Big East that year under Leonard Hamilton, finished second, then won the Big East the next year. Hamilton leaves. Now he's done such a great job with Florida State for 20 years, 20 plus years. Miami sunk to the depths of despair quickly under Perry Clark as replacement. He was replaced by Frank Haith, who was mediocre in the ACC. Miami wasn't terrible. I mean, Miami was generally middle of the ACC most years. But Haith got the Missouri job in 2011, and Miami brought in Jim Larrañaga, who had been a mid-major coach his whole career, Bowling Green. He'd been an assistant at Virginia, which I think was really important for the ACC, but Bowling Green and then George Mason, and obviously took George Mason to the Final Four. And again, by that time, I'm working in the NASL. I'm working in pro soccer. My rooting interest is Manchester City in England, English football, Premier League, and then Miami basketball. And, to a lesser extent, Florida basketball, UF basketball. Larrañaga's second season, we win the ACC, 2013. We win the ACC regular season title. We win the ACC tournament. And at that point, what I had dreamt about, what I had hoped for 15 years earlier, when I was watching Leonard Hamilton's very good Miami teams not get the national recognition they deserved in the Big East, was going to happen, because suddenly Miami was a big-time program. And this football school that had this football dynasty in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s was now much more competitive in basketball than in football. Full stop. 2013 as ACC champions, regular season and the tournament. 2023 ACC champions, the shirt I'm wearing. Sorry. 22 years later, and so Larrañaga beats Duke and North Carolina by big margins in 2013. Beats North Carolina in the ACC title game as well. 2015-16 season, we were knocking on the door of an ACC title. We go into the final day of the regular season, tied with North Carolina. They're going to Durham to play Duke. We're going to Blacksburg to play West Virginia Tech. The results didn't go as you expected. We lost to Tech. They beat Duke in Durham. And so they won the ACC title, but still within a game, right there. And Miami was right there throughout Larrañaga's tenure. A great team in 17-18. Got upset by Loyola in Loyola's magical run in the first round of the tournament. Loyola, Chicago's Cinderella run. But in 2017-18, we finished third in the ACC. Going back to the 15-16 season, the season we finished second, the final day finishing behind North Carolina, that team was absolutely loaded. Just what a joy to watch that team was. Angel Rodriguez, Sheldon Mack. You had Tony Ajikiri, Kamari Murphy. Up front, Davon Reed. The backcourt in the 12-13 season, I should mention, was headed by Shane Larkin. And you had Kenny Kaji, who I'd watched at Florida, who transferred from Florida to Miami, the big man on that 12-13 team that won both the ACC regular season title and the ACC championship game, ACC tournament title. Miami recalibrates, right? During the COVID era, you get in Isaiah Wong. Isaiah Wong came directly, right? He played 4 years at Miami, but you get in Cam McGusty, a guy to transfer from Oklahoma who was a baller. Sam Wardenberg was a great player we had. Charlie Moore transfers in. He had actually been the backup point guard on Kansas's national championship team under Bill Self. So the 2021-22 season, coming out of COVID after all of the confusion about COVID, and I mentioned Leonard Hamilton, love Leonard Hamilton, that Florida State team. The best team I think he had in his career prior to that was the 98-99 Miami team, which I mentioned finished the game behind UConn, historically good UConn team in the Big East. Then that team was eclipsed by the 1920 FSU team, won the ACC. There was no tournament. So Leonard missed his best chance to win a national championship. But anyway, coming out of COVID, where there was a lot of confusion, Miami recalibrates, gets to an Elite Eight, gets within, Miami lost 3 games by 1 point in the 21-22 season. But Larrañaga felt young again, right? He was enthusiastic with the players. And you win those 3 games, you win the ACC. Actually, you win 2 of those games, you win the ACC. So Miami's right there, finishes in the top 4 in the ACC, gets into the NCAA tournament, goes on a great run, beats Auburn, the SEC champions, by a huge margin, wins against Iowa State, wins against USC in the first round. Southern Cal beats Iowa State in a great game in the Elite Eight. Runs into Kansas in the Elite Eight. Sweet 16 was the Iowa State game, so we lose. But then it comes again the next year. The next year we win the ACC. Norchad Omier and Nigel Pack joined that team. We win the ACC regular season title. Every game we were in, the only games we lost in the ACC were games where guys either fouled out or got hurt. We could have gone undefeated in the league. We were that good. We were really, really good. And I knew going into the tournament we were really, really good, and we got to the Final Four. My dad passed away a month later. He got to see Miami make the Final Four, so I was really excited about that. Got to see Miami win an ACC title again that year. They had that elusive ACC title, if you're talking about Miami football, right? But an ACC title that they've won a few times now in basketball. And everything was riding high. And this was the program. This was my one sporting interest, my one passion, and things were going so well. And the Larrañaga teams gave me so much joy. If I ever fell into a depression, if I ever fell into any sort of professional work issues, there was always Miami basketball. There was always Coach L's teams. The last 10 months have been very bad. February and March of last season, when we went from being a ranked team, a top 10 team, to ending the season on a 10 match losing streak. Right, we were in the top 10 at this point last season, or maybe we were fallen out of the top 10 by that point, but we're still ranked. And this season has started horribly, and Miami has in fact now lost 14 straight games to teams in power conferences. This is going from winning the ACC. As I said, we could have gone 20-0 in the ACC 2 years ago. That's how good the team was. So this is the new reality of college sports, folks. It's all about NIL and the portal. And like Jim Boeheim, like Mike Krzyzewski, like Roy Williams, like Tony Bennett, like Mike Bray, potentially like Leonard. Leonard's hanging on at FSU. I wish him the best. I really hope FSU can win, continue to win. Well, they haven't won much in the last few years. Can start to win again for him. This is college sports now, and it somewhat affects your fandom, right? Guys in, guys out. But it is fair to pay the players. It is fair for players to be compensated. But I just wanted to say, just on my behalf, what I can do with in being one of the writers here at the Florida Squeeze, one of the contributors, actually the publisher. Thank you. I mean, this has been magical for the last 14 years. And it's given me something in my life that I'm not getting from other things, right? Maybe I get it from watching movies and reading books. But in terms of sports and athletics, University of Miami basketball in the Larrañaga era has given me something that I don't get elsewhere in life. So it's been a very, very sad day for me. And yeah, I mean, we move on. Thank you. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a great man. The things he's done in the local community have been wonderful. The statements University of Miami basketball program made after Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, after the shooting, that's a couple miles from me. I live in Coral Springs. Was just tremendous. I mean, that reaffirmed why I had such a sentimentality for UM basketball, even though I went to the University of Florida. I mean, it was a tough time in South Florida, and that program really, I think, did more than just about anything from a visibility standpoint. Had a nationally televised game on CBS against Syracuse that they made all about MSD. You can hear it in my voice. I'm just very sad today. So thank you again, and just wanted to record this video and throw it out on TFS.